types of IELTS, like academic and general training modules. Now, let me quickly give some hints about the difference between academic and general training tests, right? So first of all, academic test is for applying for universities, right? This is for studying, right? And what is the difference between academic and general test? General training test is not for applying for university, of course. It is for working for immigration and for employment in some special countries around the world. So the difference is clear cut. There is no any difference between listening as well as speaking. As in listening, in both modules, we have 4 parts. Actually, they were called sections, but now they decided to change it into parts, right? And we have 40 questions in both parts. You can see on the table here, right? And for speaking as well, they have 3 parts in academic and as well as in general training, right? But there is a very important difference between their reading parts as well as writing ones. So in reading an academic test, you are expecting to see 3 whole passages, which are in academic instruction, right? Still, we have 40 questions. However, if we talk about general training tasks here, you are not expected to complete 3 full passages, but here, small passages will be provided to you, but still 40 questions you should read, scan, skim, and solve, etc. So we will come back at the end of the webinar on more information about reading of general training. I'll be presenting this. And in writing, of course, we have just one difference. Actually, task 2 of writing is the same for academic as well as general training one. Like you are expected to write an essay. However, coming to task 1, there is a very big difference. For task 1, you are writing a statistical report in academic test. However, if you decided to take general training 1, here you are not writing a statistical report, but here you are writing a letter. And what kind of letter? We will touch this topic just at the end of this webinar after having a lot of details and discussions about academic tasks. Now, I'm giving the turn to our first participant, who is Diyorbek, right? And maybe you know him. I guess many people know this person as he's working very hard at preparing many students to the university, international universities, to take their IELTS examinations. This person is Diyorbek Hayutmurodov, who works as an IELTS instructor at a very famous IELTS language center where IELTS is taught, of course, and this is called IELTS Zone. Now I'm giving my turn to Diyorbek now, and Diyorbek, you can continue now.
All right, so just a second. Hello everyone, my name is Diyorbek Hayutmurodov and I'm an IELTS instructor based in Tashkent. I've scored 8.5 overall with 9 in listening, and I've taken the exam 6 times. And in 2 of my attempts, I got 9 in listening. In the other attempts, I got 8.5 in this section. So this is why Ms. Saada asked me if I could do like this part. And I am really grateful for this opportunity, because I guess I indeed have something to share in terms of helping you improve your listening skills. So without further ado, I guess I can start, right? So I'm going to start off by telling you basic facts about the listening test, and then we will move on to talk about more advanced things, all right? So listening will be the very first test that you're going to take on the exam day. then you're going to have your reading and then writing. Of course, your speaking exam will either happen 7 days prior to your main exam or 7 days afterwards. And this section lasts between 30 to 40 minutes and divided into 4 parts. Each part has now like 10 questions. You can only hear the tape script once. These are some of the facts about this section. In the paper IELTS, you're going to have 10 minutes at the end of the test in order to answer, in order to transfer your answers to the answer sheet. Whereas in the computer, now it is called CDI, computer delivered IELTS. You're going to have to make sure that your spelling is correct, and for that you get only 2 minutes. All right. Can you guys please?
Of course, you want the second sentence there. Really don't want to be eating grandpa, so that calm.
All right, so I guess someone else is speaking at the same time I'm speaking.
I like cooking my family.
All right, I guess we need to. All right, so now, as you can see, I've got some highlighted statements here. This is really important in my opinion. So you are given 30 seconds break at the beginning, in the middle, and at the end. The reason I think this information to be important is this is the only tip that I could give as a teacher to you. But this break in the middle does not exist in part 4. So this break does not exist in part 4. What you can do using these breaks, you can read ahead and look at all the questions. This is the only tip that I could provide to you. So the advice is basically when you are given break at the beginning, like they ask you to look at questions in part 1 to 5, do not just sit and stay and look at the questions 1 to 5. Go ahead and look at questions 6 to 10. And then in the middle, you will be given like again 30 seconds, and use this 30 seconds and look at questions in part 2 and etc. This allows you to look at more difficult questions and have some sort of expectation. So this piece of advice is something that I'm going to come back in the next slides. All right, so I'm gonna today address the most common problem, and that is students come to me and probably they come to other tutors and with the same problem. They say, I've finished all Cambridge books, but I'm still getting 27 in listening. And I think this is the most common scenario encounter that I have with students. They say, I've completed all Cambridge books. Why am I still getting 27 in listening? Well, because there is focus. The focus is on different thing. The focus here is on not improving skills, but rather on testing skills. So if you're simply testing yourself every day, I don't see you improving anyhow anytime soon. So what I will do in today's like little webinar, I'm trying to help you improve your skills that you need in order to better your score. Because I did not talk about the types of questions. Yes, there are 11 types of questions in the listening test, but there is so much fixation on with the types of questions. But rather than focusing on the types of questions, in my opinion, it's important, what do those types of questions actually check? So this is something that I will talk about as I cover different parts of the listening test. All right, let's start with parts 1 and part 2. As you guys know, like Ms. Saurat also mentioned this, the IELTS test is taken by 2 types of people. One group of people take it in order to immigrate to an English-speaking country. Others, like the majority of people who take the IELTS, will take it in order to continue their studies in an institution where English is the medium of instruction. So, but IELTS uses only one test to assess the listening skills of those people. So this is why what IELTS did. IELTS divided the listening test broadly into half. The 2 parts check if you could live and work in an English-speaking country. The remaining 2 parts check if you can study in another country. So part 1 and part 2 are based on social context, whereas part 3 and 4 are based on academic context. So this is really important distinction that is shown by IELTS clearly. So I'm going to start now looking at different parts of the test, and I will be giving you skill building strategies. Again, the focus here is not just to test ourselves, but try to improve our skills when we are preparing for the exam. So during the period leading up to your exam, you need to be trying to improve your skills. So let's start with part one. What happens in part one? In part one, you're going to hear a conversation between two people. So this is a conversation, transactional conversation between two people. As you can see, all right, I guess Oisha is not here. All right. So, all right. So this conversation is transactional. What does transactional mean? Transactional means one person asks for the information and the other person receives information. As I said at the beginning, this is checking if you can live in an English-speaking country. So you will be basically hearing conversations that happen in everyday lives of people. So you might hear a conversation between two people who are discussing booking a holiday or joining a childcare facility or joining a local gym, library, and etc. So as I show in the slide, usually these two people, one of them is a man and the other is a woman. The reason is simple. IELTS make sure that they want you to immediately recognize the voices, because the kind of voices they make is of course different because of their genders. So now what students do, oftentimes students like, let's say you mainly have either table completion or notes completion in listening part one, right? Students oftentimes spend too much time on like circling things and oh, it's going to be number, it's going to be a noun, it's going to be verb. This is really good actually, that you are actively looking at the questions. But what I want you to do an activity to improve your skills, because this type of question, table completion, notes completion, check if you can listen to information for specific information. So each type of question is actually checking if you have certain academic skill. So to improve those academic skill, one activity that I tend to use in my classroom is, rather than predicting what part of speech that you're going to listen to, I think it's important to predict the word itself. For example, here you have island transport vehicles like motor scooter, economy car, right? You basically have an idea what the passage will be about. You're going to listen to this when they introduce you. Now you're going to hear a conversation between a man and woman. So this is really important because that gives you a context that allows you to contextualize what's going to happen, to visualize. And this visualization is really going to help you in terms of imagining the situation. If you can put yourself in that exact situation, I'm sure that the retention of the information will be much higher and your concentration levels also will be much higher. So this is why, again, what we are doing, instead of like writing down what kind of part of speech, I'm going to try to predict the words themselves. For example, it says motor scooter. I'm going to write how much it might be. Well, probably it's going to be about $50 because economy car is costing almost $90, right? I'm going to write down 50. And then comments, it is fun to write. They provide helmets and something as a way of protection, right? So you're going to write whatever it might be. It might be probably coats. And don't write just spelling, write something like, oh, don't write on something road, main road maybe. Number 4, you can drive on all the roads and to a place for a swim. Where do you go to place in order to swim? It may be a beach, it may be a river, it may be a sea. Write down that saying. And no, in the economy car, you can imagine in the economy car, there will be probably no AC, air conditioning, right? An e-bike and etc. You get my point. So what do? Instead of predicting what the word will be, don't write noun or adjective. Use the breaks that I mentioned at the earlier stages of my presentation and write down what word you will exactly use. Rather than noun, adjective, please try to predict the words. And this is a kind of skill that you don't really develop in one sitting, in one exercise. You're going to have to practice this a lot in your, in your prep leading up to your exam. So this is called prediction strategy, because what you're basically doing, you're forcing your brain to recognize the information when the speakers tell that exact information. Because this question is checking if you can listen to information that's so specific. So this is why when you write quotes, I'm sure that I'm not getting the exact word, but when they mention something close to that, I at least immediately recognize that that's a word that's unsaid. So battery is not very heavy, and probably one of you might come up with powerful, right? Battery is not very powerful. At least that you are not simply writing adjective, but you are actively forcing your brain to think of and recognize what's going to be mentioned in the track and recording. So this is my advice for writing part, listening part one. Basically, what do? You try to predict the words themselves rather than what part of speech you're gonna need. And part two is a monologue, again in a social situation. Now, I want you to put yourself in the shoes of a person who creates questions for part two, especially. I think they actually have a very difficult job. The reason they have a difficult job, while we might have conversations, dialogues with people in social context, we rarely make monologues, right? That person, the examiner who's creating listening questions, actually have very difficult task to do, because they need to now think of situations in which person talks alone, right, on their own. So examples can be, they are probably the most common example is a tour guide. That is, tour guide who's giving information about the tour, or someone is giving introduction to a meeting, or like there is an internship program, and you are introducing interns to the office and etc. These can be all examples of part two, and again, it happens in social context, and it's going to be a monologue. And you usually will have either multiple choice and a classification, and the second part of part two is always, almost 100% of the time, going to be maps. So you need to know maps. So in my opinion, although most books claim that listening part 4 is by far the most difficult section in the listening part, in my opinion, part 2 and part 3 are probably slightly more difficult than part 4, because they are going to have multiple choice questions, and multiple choice questions check if you can identify tone, if you can identify the main general idea of the discussion that's going on in the tape script. So I'm going to give general advice for part 2 and part 3 together. So, okay, so part 3 is a conversation between 2 or 3 speakers in academic context. So this is probably, in my opinion, arguably by far the most difficult section in the IELTS exam, because you not only have to recognize different voices, and you also have to be prepared for understanding different accents. And the most common accent in this part is Australian accent. So I will be giving you some channel names, some podcasts, in order to develop your ear to understand Australian and some other accents that you're going to find in this part. So usually, again, now we are moving on to the academic part of the listening. So students will be discussing a class project, dissertation, or presentation, and they usually either 2 students get together and discuss the project, or they meet their tutor and they all 3 together discuss the project. And here you're going to have very long multiple choice questions along with matching information questions. Again, here we need to be developing a strategy. We will be improving our skills rather than testing our skills. So one way to improve our skills when you have this kind of long, like multiple choice questions and matching information questions, I recommend that you use what TOEFL students use. So this is interesting because I want you to prepare, again, with a bit of experimentation, you figure out if this is really going to work out in your favor, but I think this is a really good way to improve your overall oral comprehension. So basically the strategy is when you are doing listening section 3, of course you don't want to do this in the exam. You do this in the period leading up to your exam. What do? You, rather than looking at the questions, you probably don't take a look at the questions at all. So you probably put them away and you take out a piece of paper and you take notes. As far as I know, this happens in TOEFL. So before showing the questions to candidates, what TOEFL does, they give students a piece of paper, blank, and a pencil, and they take notes, and then they will show the questions. What is the point of doing this exercise? Because this exercise forces you to understand the main idea, because multiple choice questions and matching information questions are not checking if you can understand specific information. For other types of questions, for completion questions, you can just look at the keyword and wait for it, even if you don't understand what's going on. But here, if you don't understand what's going on, if you don't understand the overall idea, you will not be able to find answers because there will be a lot of distractions. As you can see, there are 3 options and 2 other options are going to be distractors. So please do this exercise. Like, what do? You don't look at the questions. You basically put them away and you take notes. Like, here's an example that I used to do with my students. So for example, if it's part 3, I gave them a piece of paper and they take notes. They take notes for half of the recording, and then I will give them questions. Then they check the questions, and then we see if they have remembered anything from the speech. This way, you will be able to improve your overall oral comprehension. So again, here in listening part 3, waiting for the keyword to be told doesn't really help. This might help in part 1 or part 4, but in part 2 and part 3, this doesn't really work. So this is the kind of skill building strategy, skill building activity that I recommend. And I think I'm kind of using a misnomer. I'm using a wrong word for this strategy because students seem to think that there are some sort of strategies that only people who got Ben 8.5 or Ben 9 know. No, there are no strategies or techniques. You simply have to improve your comprehension. This is just a skill building exercise that I recommend that you do during the period leading up to your exam. And finally, we have part 4. Again, most books and websites claim that this is by far the most difficult section, but I don't think this is the case because here, yes, sentences are more grammatically complex and you're going to have very complex ideas and sentences because you're going to have here an academic lecture, right? One speaker gives an academic lecture. It can be quite difficult to understand overall idea. But there are signposts in this part. So they say, now let's move on to talk about lions, lions breeding and etc. They kind of, lead you from one point to another. So this is why it can be quite easy to do this section. Again, the same thing that I recommend here. For example, if you look at it, it is about traditional Polynesian navigation, right? Most students, again, do the same method they did in part 1. They try to write, oh, noun, it should be place, it should be adjective. Please, again, go beyond this step and try to predict the words themselves in this part as well, like you did in part 1. So what do? You try to force your brain to think of the exact word. Our goal is not to find the exact word, even if we find something close to that. When the speakers mention that close word, that word that's close to what you have in your guessing place, then you immediately recognize it. Because you are forcing your brain to actively, contextualize what's happening. So Polynesian peoples originally migrated to the Pacific Islands. So probably they came from maybe Africa or maybe Asia, I don't know. European explorers, so I'm gonna write immediately Africa. European explorers were impressed that Polynesian canoes were than European ships. So I need adjective, I need comparative adjective, maybe faster, right, faster. Then paddles were used for, okay, you've got equipment. It is important to read the instructions carefully, by the way. And I'm actually not mentioning basic things like reading the instructions carefully, making sure that your spelling is correct, because this is kind of information that you already know. I want you to now think of one noun or gerund in order to put it in this place. Paddles were used for for traction, for moving ahead. Warm clothes were made from the paper mulberry tree, or maybe bark bark of the tree, etc. Right? They remembered where stars rose and set up by making up detailed. Okay, so you're remembering where the stars are located, probably maybe detailed drawings. So again, rather than simply writing what the word is, adjective, noun, or verb, or whatever, please try to predict the words themselves. And you're probably wondering, how am I going to do it within 30 or 45 seconds that I have at the beginning? Because in this part, you don't have any breaks in the middle, right? Well, you're going to do this because you have taken, because at the beginning I told you to take advantage of the breaks you have in each part. So to do well in part 3 and part 4, you have to make sure that you have taken advantage of those breaks very wisely, and you have looked at questions in part 3 and part 4 not once but twice. If you can do this, you already have very clear picture of what you're going to listen to in this lecture. So this is something that I recommend in terms of improving your academic skills, because I think listening is the only section where you don't need really much like extensive academic skills, because if you give it to anybody without introducing them to the test format, I'm sure that they're going to, if their level of English is good, they're going to at least find 35 out of 40. So this is a part of the exam where you are not required many academic skills, but these skills might be really helpful in improving your overall comprehension and improving your academic skills that you need, which are not really large in quantity. And yeah, these are my tips or pieces of advice for each part. But overall, it comes down to whether or not you understand what's being said. So this is why I recommend that you do active listening. So there are two kinds of listening. There's passive listening and active listening. Passive listening is when you put on your like headphones and you take on a bus and then you take, like, you probably sit in a car and just listen to it as you go, as you commute to your workplace or study, right? And this is really passive because you're not writing down words. You're simply developing an ear. I think this is a good way of improving your skills, but this is not really helping you much. To improve your listening comprehension a lot, I think you should be doing active listening. Active listening is when you're actively trying to learn new expressions, new words, new vocabulary, and you are making sure that if there is a word that you don't understand, you are trying to guess and Google it and find, and that way you actually will be able to remember the pronunciation of certain words, in the long future. So this is something that you should be doing. And two things that I recommend that you do to improve your active listening is listen to podcasts and watch YouTube videos and watch movies. So, and I recommend that you don't listen to podcasts that are aimed for English learners, like 6-minute English. I don't think that's really good, because maybe at the initial stages of language learning, it might be good, but they are really specifically for language learners. What I recommend that you listen to podcasts that are released for general audience. So within an idea that everybody knows English. So someone who knows English will be listening to these podcasts. So that way you are exposing yourself to real English. So some of the podcasts that I recommend would be This American Life. This is probably by far the most popular podcast and radio show in the United States. Radio Lab is an example. So for part 4, for example, in order to expose yourself to academic language, you can listen to TED Talks. TED Talks are really good, not only for improving your speaking skills, but also for improving your overall worldview as well. And 2 podcast apps that I recommend, Pocket Cast that I use, but it's a paid app. You're going to have to pay a sum of like $2 or $3 as far as I know, but Google Podcasts are free. So you might want to use either of them, because I'm sure that you can find as many podcasts as you need using these 2 apps. So basically, this is what I have to say about listening part. All right.
Thank you so much, Diyorbek. I very hope that it was very useful for our future IELTS candidates. Especially, I like it, the last part about active listening. So, you know, it's better to listen to all these recordings and listenings as active listening to increase your language, not only listening, but also all other skills. Yeah, do you agree with me, Diyorbek?
Exactly. I mean,
Yeah.
when you're listening to authentic materials, you're not only improving your listening skills, but you're also actually exposing yourself to real English. Because as far as I'm concerned, in language learning, the most important thing is comprehensible input. The input is what you are consuming. So you need to be exposing. Basically, that's how we learn our own languages. So this is why I think active listening is not only helping you improve your IELTS listening score, but it's also helping you in some ways that you are not noticing.
Yeah. Thank you very much, Diyorbek. It was really interesting as well as useful for everybody, I guess. And guys, do you have any questions on listening to Diyorbek? If you have, please, you can ask. No. Everything was clear, cut, concise, and understandable. In this case, thank you very much, Diyorbek. We'll continue.
Yeah. Hi. Can I just, I'm keeping an eye on the YouTube channel and just wanted to say hellos and thanks to Diyorbek from Elshot, Mahina, Muhammad Sadek. So just wanted to pass on the thanks.
The students are supporting you, Diyorbek. Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you for giving me this opportunity. Thank you.
Thank you for coming. Okay.
Thank you.
Now you'll continue listening to other speakers as well.
All right.
Okay. Thank you. Now I would like to introduce our next speaker, who is Barno Mukimova, who is an IELTS instructor as well as CAE, I mean CAE and FCA speaking examiner. Unfortunately, she was in the mountains and she recorded whole video beforehand, fortunately. And I would like to demonstrate it now, and we will listen to her very carefully, and I guess it will be like live now, right? Okay, now let's begin.
Hello, everybody. Today in a series of IELTS seminar, my part is to talk about reading part. I am Barno Mukimova, and welcome to the seminar about the reading part. So we will today talk about the tips that will help you, as I hope, to transform your reading, because those tips helped me, and I didn't look up them in any place, but they were the ones that I have had to arrive at when I was dealing with sort of difficulties in the reading aspect. But without further ado, let's get down to the seminar. So I wanted to give little hopes of motivation by showing you the results of our soldiers. So as you see, they were doing much better in the reading component of the examination compared to the other parts. They are the living proof to the fact that if you insert a lot of consistent and conscious hard work into a certain area, there is no chance that you are not going to succeed in it. The only thing that you gotta do is to believe.
Yeah, there is some technical noise. Yeah, people you see cannot hear it. Can I try to play it on my side?
Okay.
So yeah, I don't know what's the problem, but yeah. Yeah, I'm sorry guys. So let's see how it will play on mine. Where is it? Where did I?
Guys, we're very sorry for inconvenience. You know, technology, we can have some problems sometimes, right? So, but Barno Mukimova was very sorry that she couldn't participate live in this webinar. So we will try to provide you with high quality video now.
Yeah, let me find it.
Now, you think
Yeah.
there was noise, right?
Yeah, there was some background noise. Yeah, something was, yeah. Okay, I got it. So it just, I will do it now. Yeah.
IELTS seminar, my part is to talk about reading part. I am Barno Mukimova, and welcome to the seminar about the reading part. So we will today talk about the tips that will help you, as I hope, to transform your reading, because those tips helped me, and I didn't look up them in any place, but they were the ones that I have had to arrive at when I was dealing with sort of difficulties in the reading aspect. But without further ado, let's get down to the seminar. So I wanted to give little hopes of motivation by showing you the results of our soldiers. So as you see, they were doing much better in the reading component of the examination compared to the other parts. They are the living proof to the fact that if you insert a lot of consistent and conscious hard work into a certain area, there is no chance that you are not going to succeed in it. The only thing that you gotta do is to believe that you can do, work hard, and get the mark that you want to get. So let's start. So today I will share with 3 tips. Tip number 1, question types. It is related to the question types. I want you to understand, despite the fact that there are 15, 16, some sources say 12 types of the questions in the reading component of the IELTS examination, actually there is a way of optimizing them and understanding the question types faster, but the most importantly, to be able to utilize the tips that you thought, or techniques that you thought you knew, but most probably after the seminar, you will have to review them and use them in a more practical manner. And secondly, I would like to suggest you and share with the sources that I was using to make reading a daily habit. And last but not least, I think that's the most important of all, you have to study your weaknesses closely. So let's start with the first one. You may of course ask a question. So what are the question types? Or, so does knowing the question type do something? Is this knowledge help me in something? I will tell you that yes, they certainly do. Otherwise, I wouldn't be sharing with you this tip. So there are 15 types of questions in the IELTS of reading. So these are those types. So you can look at them quickly, matching the heading, true, false, matching the paragraph, summary completion, etc. And the funny thing is that while some people would find true, false, or yes, no extremely easy, so for the vast majority, that can be really hard, and the vice versa. For some people, it can be multiple choice questions that give a hard time, but for the other people, this is easy peasy, lemon squeezy. So you never know what, because people are different and individuals differ. So should actually the methods that you're using and techniques that you're using, if you are thinking of using only those popular techniques like scanning and skimming for all types of questions, I am sorry, but you are going to sound like fool, look like fool, because you cannot use the same technique for everything. So this is not going to give the results that you are striving at. So some require, so here is a little note that I left you at the bottom. So these are the 15 types of questions, but for a reference, I just wanted to say beforehand, some of these questions require very focused attention. So you have to do this deep reading, thoroughly analyze the information in the passage before you jump onto any conclusions. While others can be handled with less effort. You just copy and paste the information that you found in the passage by taking specific vocabulary from the question. So you use those so-called popular scanning and skimming skills. So let's have a look at the second slide. So I have circled 4 questions that ask you to deeply understand the given information. In other words, they are comprehension questions. So questions can be the ones that ask for the specific details, or questions may require from you deep analysis, deep understanding. The answer is not in the surface. This is somewhere at the bottom. You have to really understand it. So if you're trying to scheme and scan for the matching the heading, so I don't think it's going to be a clever idea. So and many people do not really see the difference between true, false, or yes, no, or one of the very popular questions that I am personally given is there any difference between true, false, and yes, no? Just think logically. If there were no difference between true, false, and yes, no, why would they give you these types of questions separately, right? So logical answer would be yes, they differ, and therefore they are of 2 types, not of the same type. So true, false, not given types of the questions are there to test your understanding of specific details. That's why you are more likely to meet these types of questions in the first passage. You know, there are 3 passages in the IELTS, so it goes from hard, it goes from easy to harder and the hardest, right? Third passage is usually the hardest one. But anyways, when you're dealing with the true, false, not given, probably you are in the passage 1 that talks about something more general, encyclopedia-like information, discovery of whale, or the production of ice cream, you name it. But when it comes to yes, no, not given types of questions, they require from you understanding of something bigger. So by saying bigger, if you just look at the instruction of the yes, no, not given, before you're actually given the statements, it just says you are checking the claims of the author about the information. You are not matching information to the information like in the true, false, not given questions. But in the yes, no, not given questions, you are actually checking if the opinion, claim of the author match to the claim and the opinion provided in the passage. So you're checking ideas. So when you are checking information, so you just take the keywords, go to the passage, find the part, and read the part. You just make the conclusion accordingly. But when you are dealing with yes, no, not given, so one of the first distinctions can be the fact that yes, no, not given would require more than 1 sentence's reading to arrive at the correct answer. And the third one is MCQ, or multiple choice questions. I'm not claiming that all types of the multiple choice questions are there to test your comprehension of the idea or information provided, but I've noticed such a pattern coming out of the examinations that I have taken myself and coming out of the observation of the Cambridge tests from Cambridge 10, to be more specific. I'm talking about Cambridge official tests. So I've observed such a pattern. So it turns out that in the passage 3, starting from the Cambridge 10, so 3rd passage asks you because your eyes are and a little slower. But if you constantly read only first and the last one, and then you skip past the middle of the paragraph, I think you are on the very, very wrong track. It's high time for you to fix them. So what you have to do, first off, you need to understand they are not on the surface. Stop looking for vocabulary only. You are not dealing with vocabulary matching exercises here. You'll have to apply more focused reading. So one of the best tips would be to slow down. When you're reading, try to read a little bit slowly. Usually it sounds counterintuitive when I say to my students, if you want to manage your time, you have to read slowly. They usually say, no, Ms. Barno, it really doesn't sound logical. It's like, I never manage in 1 hour. Why should I read slowly? But actually, when you read slowly, you will complete the test faster because you will not have these hesitations. It's like, maybe that's 2, maybe that's 4. I really don't know which one to choose, or etc. So more focused And a little slower reading of those 4 types of questions especially will somehow enable you deeper understanding. So slow down, in other words, a little bit. Use your critical thinking while reading. So keyword here is while reading. It's important that you do reading and critical analysis at the same time. How does that look like when you're reading a paragraph simultaneously? Because we know your eyes are there to deliver the information to your brain, but your brain does the most of the work. Your brain reads. Your eyes see the information. If your eyes could read, I could show you now the Japanese hieroglyphics and you would be succeeding in reading it, because your eyes are there to see the symbol, and these symbols are then interpreted in your brain to certain information. But to help your brain to process the information faster, because for these 4 questions, your comprehension will decide your success rate, you can do like that. So when you are reading, you simultaneously ask yourself questions like, what is the idea here? So why didn't he do it fast? Okay, what was holding him back? What was the obstacle and how did he overcome it? So you try to ask questions in that way. And last thing that I hope you and I will agree on and share the same mindset on would be the fact that those types of questions are usually and mostly designed for the candidates of 7 and 7.5 and higher scores, and they are by definition, by default, hard. So there is no denying the fact that your level of English will decide a lot. So we can talk for hours and hours about methods, about techniques, but they will not get you 7 or your desired 8 band in the reading unless your level of English is not adequate, because you can stare at the empty wall and you will not see anything in it. Have those trained eyes. So let's move on. And then you may ask, what can we do with the questions that ask for the very specific details, like what is the name of the inventor, in what year X became popular? You will use your paraphrasing skills here. You're more than welcome to scan the keywords, take those keywords, go to the passage, scan the passage coming out of the keywords, find the location, and skim read that part. And my personal life hack, IELTS hack, is don't go that far from the keywords. If you find the keywords in the passage, if you're dealing with the very specific information requiring types of questions, the life hack for you would be not to go that much removed from the location of the keywords that you found the answer. So let's see this in practice. So these are let's only talk about the 30 forces question. So this is an example of the completion task, and you understand that they require very specific information. So here we will not do deep and focused reading. We will just look at the information, digest it fast, take the keywords, go to the passage, find the location of the keywords in the passage. We slow down because I told you that the keywords will not be that much far away from the answer. So it says 71 species of living turtles and tortoises were examined, and a total of 2 were taken from the bones of their forelimbs. So how many of a total what were taken? So we understand that we have to write a number followed by a noun in plural, as long as we see the grammar word, right? So I took the keyword 71 species, went to the passage, and I was scanning to find this number. I found it, I circled it, 71 species of living turtles and tortoises. So that now I need to slow down a little bit, because I know the key rule that usually in 90% of the cases, the right answer will be around the corner when you find the keywords of the question in the passage. So they use the kind of triangular graph paper to plot the 3 measurements against one another. So here we go. Easy peasy. So 3 measurements would be the right answer. A total of. So how many? 3. So how many what? 3 measurements. Okay, you copy, you paste, and that's it. But what about an example for the question that asks you to comprehend deeply? So the classic of genre, the example of $1 million quartet underlines the writer's point about what. So $1 million quartet would be the keyword that I would use to locate the information. But again, another life hack for these types of questions would be this one. Even if you find the keyword in the passage of these types of questions, if it's in the middle, please start reading from the start of the paragraph, because it is illogical to understand idea from half. You have to read it from the start of the idea. So in other words, from the start of the paragraph where the idea starts. Sometimes you may read 2 paragraphs because the idea was first mentioned in the first paragraph. You see why these types of questions are extremely challenging. But anyways, let's try to do that. So, and moreover, I would not recommend you to look at the options, because your brain will somehow remember the options and will try to push you like, isn't it B? You saw the word B. Is it the A one? You saw the word talent, and etc. We don't want to get confused. So that's why all we have to do is to look at the question, understand the question. If there are some keywords like numbers, proper nouns, etc., we will take them as a guiding blocks for the passage to locate the information. But we will read it from the beginning. And we slow down a little bit, like I've just told you. One of the most famous photographs in the story of rock and roll emphasizes Cialdini's views. The 1956 picture of singers Elvis Presley, Carl Perkins, Johnny Cash, and Jerry Lee jamming at a piano in Sun Studios at Memphis tells the hidden story. What is the story? So Sun's $1 million quartet could have been acquainted. Missing from a picture, Joy Orbison, a greater natural singer than Lewis, Perkinson, or Cash. So we see the point. So there is this really great photo. It could be acquainted, but actually it is not. So there is one person missing in that photo. So, and our question was, I'm reminding you again, with the help of this photo, what is the message? What is the point the writer is trying to tell you behind? So Sam Phillips, who owned Sun, wanted to revolutionize popular music with songs that fused black and white music and country and blues. So we see that Mr. Phillips wanted to blend different genres of music. That was his way of revolutionizing music industry. Presley, Cash, Perkinson, and Lewis instinctively understood Phillips' ambition and believed in it. So I underlined it because it feels like an idea, a point. And the question asks us to find the point. So yeah, it seems like this one. And believed in it. Believe in it what? Believe it in the ambition and the vision of the Mr. Phillips. But Orbison, is, you remember, who was missing from that photo, so wasn't inspired by a goal, and only ever achieved one hit with the Sun label. Is that about the recognition of a talent? No. You crossed it out. Is that working as a team? Is there something mentioned about the team? You're going to be like a team, or etc. I don't really think so, but it looks like, a little bit sneaky. Shared objective, having a shared objective. So those 4 people had the same objective, and they shared this vision with Phillips. But Orbison did not do that. It wasn't about the effective leader. So we would bet that the right answer is C. That's how you deal with these types of questions. So make reading a daily habit. Tip number 2. So these, I could make a very long list of sources, but I try to stick with minimalistic approach and share with you the ones that I used myself and still use. So I really like the medium.com. Check it out. It contains a lot of interesting articles. So there is no explanation needed for the Scientific American. But at the very, very least, if you tell me that you have no access to the internet or you don't find them interesting, at the very least, please make a reading of one passage a daily habit from the Cambridge official tests. So when you read, please do not try to do the the test. Try to understand, like, try to challenge your vision, try to take some derived sort of pleasure from the learned information. And of course, there are tons of books for free available on the internet on the area of your interest. If you're into self-help, if you're into self-development, or you like science fiction, you can download and read them. I share a lot of them on my channel, by the way. So last tip, study your weaknesses closely. So that's what really helped me. I used to keep a journal of mistakes, literally. I would write down the mistake I was making because I was so bad. I was so bad at true, false, not given. And when I was putting them down, I saw a sort of a pattern. I understood that when it came to false and not given, I was always hesitating, and I wanted to figure out what exactly not given stands for and what exactly false would stand for, so that I would fix my problem, you see. So these are the step-by-step guidance that you can also follow that will, as I hope, help you like it helped me to ace 9, and it helped my students to score 8, 9 multiple times. So keep a journal of mistakes. Write down literally every single mistake that you're making, and write down why you chose the option that you chose and why the correct answer was this or that, with explanations. Like, I agree that for the B paragraph, the right answer would be a second option because I failed to pay attention to the idea that X, Y, Z. So this is what I say. So when you are logically analyzing your mistakes, if it comes down to vocabulary that holds you back, you didn't know the word, so high time to start learning words. If it comes down to logic, you were not enough analyzing it, or if you were rushing, where you were very tired, you did it at the middle of night, right? So you may think that they have nothing to do with the explanation of your progress or not making progress in certain things, but they are there and they can really much make an influence. For example, I remember a case with my student who started waking up early in the morning at 5 a.m. and he was doing reading for the fresh brain, and he would really, literally jump out of joy and say, it's really, really game changer. It really helped me. It's like, where were I before kind of stuff, maybe you will find that helpful to you too. The most important thing is to really come and find the root cause of the problem. So that would give us working consciously. And everybody knows that hard work does pay off, and hard work beats talent, but not every person actually knows the fact that conscious hard work would pay off. But sitting in front of something for hours and hours and not knowing what exactly you are doing, I don't think it can be classified as a hard work. So I would like to finish today's small seminar dedicated for the reading part with this wonderful quote: hard work beats talent when talent doesn't work hard. And at the same time, I want to remind you these words: hard work that you have done with the conscious brain, with the deep analysis. So smart work that actually makes a game change. So if you happen to have any questions on any components or parts that I failed to explain properly or I missed out on, so feel totally free to contact me via the bot on IELTS Soldiers Telegram channel. Thank you very much for your attention one more time. So never stop learning, like they say, because life never stops teaching us. Enjoy the rest of the seminar.
Thank you very much, Barno, for your instructions. I guess everybody who is attending this webinar will nail their reading after such kind of detailed and concise instructions. Okay, I would like to give turn to our next speaker, who is going to talk about writing action, as well as who is going to provide you some tips on writing assessment criteria. Because, knowing just structure of writing is not enough to nail your IELTS exam, to ace it. So it's better to begin with writing assessment criteria. Now, I would like to give turn to the next speaker, who is Eldor Sattorov, He is not only MA at TESOL, but also he completed CELTA course as well. So he is an IELTS instructor and entrepreneur of King's Academy. Now, Eldor, are you ready for nailing reading?
Hello, good evening. Can you hear me?
Yeah, perfectly.
Great, fantastic.
Now you can begin.
Thank you for this generous introduction, and thank you all for attending the webinar and for inviting me to share the seminar with such an amazing instructors. I myself actually sitting down and making some notes, learning still from other instructors. That's and I think students or listeners are learning much more.
Yeah, live and learn, you know.
Yeah, it is indeed. Okay, let me share my screen with you guys. Today I'm going to cover this. Okay, can you guys hear my screen? Yeah.
Yeah, we can
Yes?
see you perfectly.
Okay, great.
You and your screen.
Yeah, excellent. When Saudat told me about this webinar and suggested me to do the writing session, this was my face. And this is a phase of a lot of students when it comes to writing session. It is not the most exciting or let's say the most productive part, because this requires a lot of hard work and a lot of practice. And from our experience, our students really struggle when it comes to writing. There are a number of reasons and number of we can cover this for another webinar, but today because of the time limit, I tried to cover the 4 things that the examiner love. Obviously, whenever you prepare for the exam, whatever you're preparing for, you have to really know what you're assessed for. And this really gives you kind of a hint or kind of roadmap to prepare for the exam. So in the writing session, we have 4 things that you are assessed for, which is a task achievement and task response. And by the way, I will be covering this for task achievement, task 1, response, task 2, coherence and cohesion, lexical resource, which is basically vocabulary. And of course, the last part is a grammar. And these terminologies may sound a bit awkward and a bit strange for the learners, especially young. For the teachers, they may be quite fine and easily understood. But again, if you are an IELTS instructor, make sure that you teach your students what these 4 things stand for. If you're an IELTS candidate, make sure that you ask your instructors to help you understand these 4 things better so that you can produce a nice piece of writing. Now, these all 4 things are equally assessed, 25% for each, and you really have to cover and pay attention to all of the parts. So the first one, task achievement. Well, again, this is for task 1. I've copy pasted from the official assessment kind of paper, which is publicly available. And you can even download it from the internet as well, very, very easily. So what is the task achievement for the task 1? It basically looks at the task 1 overview. So overall, have you achieved the task? As simple as this. For instance, if I ask you, what's your name? Normal response would be, my name is blah, blah, blah. But if I ask you again, what's your name? But you say, well, that's an interesting question. People have different names. A, B, C are popular names in my country. And this would not be task achievement because you haven't answered to my question. So this is a task 1, let's say in a very brief way of saying it. So let's go into detail. So band point 9, 8, and 7, I think these are the things that you kind of achieve once you have a very high level. But if you are preparing for the exam only now and you've just started, or if you are an IELTS instructor that you teach your students, most of the time your students' level will be between 4 to 5 points. And I think that it's a good point to start with, to understand the things that students make mistakes. So in the point 5 kind of format may be inappropriate, so you can have a look. So what does format mean? So it's something you need to think of. Make sure that for the task 1, you are using appropriate language. The language for task 1 is not everyday spoken or everyday English. It's very technical, and it kind of, you need to know certain phrases and certain strategies for this. And again, no overview. The overview part is very important for the task 1 as well. So once you start describing the graph or bar chart, whatever it is, make sure that you kind of give an overview before you even start describing and going into detail. But sometimes students lack providing data. So again, no data, that means you get 5 points. And so on and so on. So I'm not going to go through all of these things. It's again publicly available. You can go through them and discuss. Let's have a look at some of the examples. So here's a typical, sorry, just text messages are coming up on my screen all the time. Okay, can you hear me? Some people are saying it's not audible.
No, it's okay. It's okay.
Okay, good.
Can
Yeah,
hear you
okay.
perfectly.
Excellent.
Don't worry.
Okay. So this is a typical task 1 you are given. So in this, on the top, if you can see that it kind of introduces the task, so what it is and what it shows. And the below highlighted part is for the task achievement. So summarize the information by selecting and reporting main features and make comparisons where relevant. So it's very important that you actually pay attention to this part, because again, this is your task. This is what you're supposed to do. If you're not selecting and reporting the main features, that means you are, going a bit off topic. If you imagine you are reporting every small detail, then that would not be a summary. Or the same goes for the comparison. Yes, you are selecting and reporting the main features, but you're not attempting to make any comparison throughout the writing, or you're making very little attempt to compare the data. Then again, you lose mark for your task achievement. Now, the second highlighted part, let's have a look at an example here. That's another very common issue here. The local fixed line, as you can see, the line goes up, and at the end of the period, it goes slightly down. So this is another common mistake. Again, in the task achievement, you make sure that you are not only kind of summarizing and comparing, but also you are reporting the data correctly. If you are giving incorrect data, incorrect numbers, obviously you lose mark, and this is very common mistake by students. Let me move to the next page. Okay, good. So here are some of the tips or some of the examples we have. So incorrect reporting, if you look at the line graph again one more time, it says fluctuated over the period, but from the picture we saw it wasn't fluctuating. Yeah, so again, you lose mark for this. Or sometimes students tend to focus too much on numbers and on details. As you can see, this example here, it's lots of numbers, and it's even painful to look at this. As an examiner, I wouldn't really like to read such kind of overloaded, information kind of writing. So again, make sure that you minimize the numbers if possible, but again, you should still include them in your writing. The last one is, again, comparison here. Here we have 2 samples. So the first one is given 100,000 men who went to university in 2002, and the second one, 200,000 men who went to university in 2002. This is popping up all the time, this notification. I'm sorry about this. Okay, the second one, as you can see, it's a good comparison, so surpassing the number of men. So again, you really have to make an attempt to compare the data. Okay, these are some of the basics for the task achievement. Let's have a look at the, okay, sorry, for the task, for the task 2. Let me do this one, height. Okay, I got it now. Good. For the task 2, it's task response. Well, very similar to what you have in the task 1. And again, points 7 to 9 are the ones that you really have to aim for. Again, the good ones, but usually when students prepare for the exam, they normally start from point 5. So again, why some students get 0.5? Because they only address the task partially. That means you're not answering the question fully. So again, very simple example, what's your name and where are you from? But you only answer the question, what's my name? So you only say, my name is blah, 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 but you don't really say where you are from. Then again, you're answering to the first question only. So again, you lose mark and your writing would be 5 points. And again, look at the 5 points, there's no conclusion drawn in the task 2. So sometimes it's your conclusion, you have written a conclusion, but it's very unclear. You don't really understand what's, as an examiner, I don't understand what's your position here. So again, you lose mark for this. Or it says not sufficiently developed. Yeah, I mean, sometimes students write an argument, they give a very good argument, an idea, but they fail to develop it. They fail to explain why, what's the point and why, etc., etc. Okay, that's again, sometimes examples can be totally irrelevant. So they're not sticking to the topic. Yeah, so again, it's very important that you keep in mind the questions throughout your writing. Again, always refer back to the question whenever you start a new paragraph, or if you want to check if you are, on topic, you're not going off topic, and so on. Okay, let's have a look at the some of the example here. The typical example, typical IELTS writing task question. So some people think that parents should teach children how to be good members of society. Others, however, believe that school is a place to learn this. So again, we have two parts of the question, parents and the school, which plays more important role to raise children. And the question says, discuss these views and give your opinion. So actually the question has three parts. So you have to look at the parents and the school, and finally give your opinion. Well, again, some of the tips, always, as I said, focus on the issue, focus on the topic, always refer back to the topic whenever you're hesitating about the arguments, or you don't know what to write, and whatever you wrote, if it's true or not, relevant or not, go back to the question. And don't overgeneralize. This is a very common issue as well. Students tend to give too general, very, very obscure sentences. And as an examiner, okay, I'm like, okay, what's your point? What do you want to say with this? And again, relevant ideas. We can talk about this over and over again, because most of the time students lack the ideas, lack the opinion on the topic. And all the arguments they give can be sometimes off topic or irrelevant, or fail to address the question, and obviously they lose mark because of this. Okay, I think this kind of sums up the task response and task achievement. And again, it's a big topic. We can talk about this for hours. And the second assessment criteria for the IELTS writing is coherence and cohesion. Coherence and cohesion. It's very difficult to pronounce. So simply saying CC. So coherence is basically the logic of your writing. Do you have any logical order? Are you following any sequence? Can I follow what you're saying? And cohesion is basically linking those ideas or the sentences in a very nice, kind of natural way. So it's in other words, cohesion is what we call linking words. Okay. So again, I've highlighted some of the kind of important parts here, but I think it's worth looking at point 5. But oftentimes students have issue with this because of, again, a lack of understanding. Yeah, point 5 says yes, there is some organization. Yeah, I can see you have introduction, you have main body and conclusion, but there is lack of logical progression in your writing. So some parts of the writing can be off topic or totally deviate from the question, or sometimes the paragraphs can be like messed up a little bit. Yeah, for example, if it's a for and against essay, or advantage, disadvantage. So in the main body, you start with advantage and follow with disadvantage, and you go advantage and messed up a little bit like this. So it can be difficult to follow your arguments. And sometimes, yes, this is very common overuse of cohesive devices. When we teach students to use linking words, they understand it literally. So they think like, okay, I have to use linking words for every sentence. And for the sake of using it, they use it in every sentence in a very, very unnatural and a kind of technical way. So really avoid overusing it. And again, at the same time, don't underuse it. So you have to really look for the balance. Yeah. So again, this comes with lots of practice and exercises. And repetitive. Yeah. Sometimes the sentences are we'll say examples in a second, but the sentences are repeated. Ideas are sometimes repeated. Yeah. Or there's a lack of connection between the sentences. So again, it's what we call repetitive. And again, not writing paragraphs, or paragraphing may be inadequate. Yeah. Again, paragraphing is so important, and we have to really think about this, and really we have to practice on paragraphing a lot to get a high mark in the IELTS. Okay, let's have a look at some very quick tips. So plan your paragraphs. Make sure that you know what you're writing first and second and the last, and have one central argument in each paragraph. Well, that's a common issue. Again, sometimes students simply list number of arguments in one paragraph without any development or giving explanation or example, and obviously it would not be a good paragraph. Okay, Organize your ideas logically. Yeah, I mean, again, we've talked about this. Yes, use a range of formal linking words. When we say formal linking words, we're looking for the words like nonetheless, yeah, nevertheless, instead of saying but, or instead of saying and, we're saying in addition, yeah, furthermore, or instead of saying so, we're saying thus, therefore, for this reason. These words sound more formal, more academic than those ones, the simple ones like but and so. Yeah, I mean, linking words we've covered. So let's have a look at an example. So money is not the most important thing in life. We'll discuss. So I give you 2 minutes to skim through the paragraphs, and you can write in the chat which you think is the better one and why. Okay. Good. We have Ali John. Good point. Dilnaza said it. Excellent. Yeah, Khushnama. Excellent. Yeah, good. I think most of you got it. Even it's highlighted here in the first one. It looks really, really nice. And if you actually manage to read through this, all the sentences are connected in around one central idea, yeah? Which basically money gives you influence. To begin with, the topic sentence and gives an example, and then kind of logically ending the paragraph as a consequence for this reason. Yeah, it's a good one. If you look at the second one, it's kind of it's good, but it's too general. First of all, it lacks central argument and the collection of, let's say, sentences. And again, there's a question sentence, and again, which is not really welcome in the middle of the paragraph. And again, I know they are wrong. It sounds very informal and it's just not very academic. So again, in terms of cohesion and coherence, the first paragraph is a really good one, but the second paragraph, it really lacks this cohesion part. Yeah, also like coherence, which is logical order of the sentences. Okay, let's move on to the third part, which is the lexical resource, or what we call vocabulary. Yeah. Well, this is a fun one. This is interesting. Again, lexical resource can be a challenge, especially if you have lower level or if you have little experience in using academic words. Let's have a look at let's say the 0.5. Yeah, again, I'm not discouraging you guys to look. You need to look for the right question in paragraph. Yeah, okay, I'll come back to this. Okay, the 0.5, we're looking at this because a lot of the times people starts at this point. Yeah, again, uses a limited range of vocabulary. Limited range means we cannot talk about, let's say, different topics, and you cannot use different vocabulary according to the context. For example, if you're talking about environment, I know a couple of words about the environment, but no more than this. Yeah, I have very limited vocabulary for this topic. Or noticeable errors in spelling. And again, spelling is important. We will come back to this in a second. Word formation is another very important part as well. Again, sometimes students use adjective instead of adverb or noun instead of verb and so on. This is a kind of some grammar, basic grammar, but again, this is part of vocabulary as well. Okay, what's the 0.8? Let's have a look at the 8 point. So conveys a precise meaning. So the vocabulary that you're using is a very, very comfortable and easy to convey or to, let's say, deliver your meaning in a way. So second is uncommon lexical resources or lexical items. There's a key word here, uncommon. So that's something you really have to think about. Yeah. So if everyone is using the same vocabulary and you don't want to repeat them, yeah. So you want to say something more than this, yeah. For example, smoking is bad for your health. And the word bad is very elementary level. So you learn this word when you start the English for the first time. But let's say smoking is detrimental to your health. This sounds much better than bad for your health, right? So the word detrimental is uncommon lexical item or simply uncommon vocabulary. Again, produces 0.8 says produces rare errors in spelling and word formation. So yes, you can still have a good mark even if you have 1 or 2 spelling mistakes, yeah, which is totally acceptable. Okay, let's have a look at this, some of the examples here. Tips, okay, some tips. So no repetition of words and paraphrase and use synonyms if possible. Yeah, I mean, the paraphrasing is interesting part because you don't want to always paraphrase. Not every word is paraphrasable or phrase is, paraphrasable. For example, in the task one, I've had some students in the task one. We had a process, and in the process there was a kind of formation of rain, and in the formation of rain you have the sun. So obviously the sun heats the water, right? So, but students write, the biggest star, the closest to the earth. Yeah. And again, why would you paraphrase the sun? You simply write it. Or some words that are not paraphrasable, it's better to basically repeat them, just copy them. And make sure that when you're using synonyms, that you're not always, if you're not sure about this, just because you checked up your dictionary and the dictionary showed a couple of synonyms, they're not always 100% replaceable to what the word you have. So really have double check for the synonyms. Yeah. We have this almighty Google, so you can always Google just to check what the word is, in what context we use, and what sample sentences we have. So in terms of vocabulary, for the learning of vocabulary, so you can see from the diagram on the right. So we have some couple of synonyms. So I normally learn the words, and I teach my students to learn the words in this way. So you have some similar words, but again, they're not 100% interchangeably used. Yeah, different context requires different vocabulary. Okay, learn topic related vocabulary is very important as well. So your basic level of English, like your daily English, is not enough. Yeah, not sufficient for getting a high mark in IELTS. So you really have to go further from your daily language. Yeah? So you go into more academic topic related vocabulary. So in this case, let's look at the climate change. So we're looking in the task 2 essay. So you need to know the words like contaminated or carbon footprint or sustainable development and many other such technical terminology. Where you learn them? You learn them by reading sample essays or reading on the topic. I mean, you just Google and look for some articles and you can go through them, or simply you can look through the climate change vocabulary on Google. Yeah, it will come. They will give you lots of results, and you can learn from them. Okay, use collocations. Well, it's another part. If you look at the lexical resources, so you have a part here. It says about the collocation at point 8, and it says, yeah, occasional inaccuracy word choices and collocation. So you're using collocation in your writings, yeah. And the collocations can be, for example, simple like use money or spend money. You can say use money, but it sounds a bit awkward and not very natural. But if you say spend money, this is more correct, yeah, in a way. So, or another one is like more academic, let's say, to make significant contribution, yeah. So it sounds very nice. Again, make contribution or derive benefit from. And I hope the webinar attendees today will derive lots of benefits from our speech. Does it make sense? Okay. The last part in the writing is, again, selling is important. Whoops, is it selling or spelling? Yeah, it should be spelling. You see, the one letter can totally change the meaning of the word. So it's supposed to be spelling here. My bad. Yeah. So yeah, spelling is important, and it is very common, by the way, in students' writings. If you're misspelling a word, it simply means you don't know the word. As simple as this. When it comes to writing, obviously, yeah. But you may pronounce the word correctly, but that they do look at this as well. So it's example. So again, I think it's clear from the highlights. The first one is a good one. Let's have a look together. The mass media, the question says, mass media have an adverse effect on moral standards. Do you agree? Okay, furthermore, it's the middle of the paragraph, especially the tabloids. You see the word tabloid is very much related to the media, and tabloid is a type of newspaper that we have. So it's what we call topic-related or topic-related vocabulary, or over-explicit articles. Yeah, that's a good one. Over-explicit. That's again related to moral standards. Over-explicit meaning we're being too open. Or another one is like front page. So usually newspapers have the front page. So you don't say the first page, you normally say the front page. So again, there's lots of such great vocabulary intended to, yeah, or craving for, or sensationalism. Yeah? Because these words can really boost your vocabulary mark, yeah. But if you look at the second example here, a lot of stars have problems too. There's a combination of very simple like words, a lot of is a spoken language here. And yeah, comparatively, I mean, you will have hopefully these slides, maybe you can compare it later on, but the words are very simple, the sentences are very short, and sometimes to understand the level of the word, you can simply look at the length of the word. Normally, again, it's not always, but normally the length here your word is, that means it's more academic. The shorter the word is, it's less academic. Yeah. If you visually, if you can see this slide, I mean, the second paragraph has lots of short words. That means the level of vocabulary is, you know, relatively worse than the first one. Okay, I have lots of notification about students. Okay. Okay, yeah, we'll come back to this. Yeah, I've got some questions. Okay, so we will be talking about self-assessment and the rest, I think, at the end of the webinar. So the last one is grammar, basically grammatical range and accuracy, we call it. Okay, grammar is again, this is a common question students have. You know, sometimes they produce an essay, they bring it to me, and I check the essay, I go through some, and they have still low mark, and without any grammar mistakes. And the question is why? Why do I have, let's say, 6 point, not 8 point, even though I don't have any grammar mistake? Yeah. Well, you can still have low mark in grammar if you're using very limited range of grammar structures. You're simply using a very simple structure throughout your essay without any mistake. Well done, but it lacks diversity, it lacks diverse grammar. So let's have a look at the point 5 again. So uses only limited range of structures. That's the thing, yeah, we've talked about. And again, you may attempt to write a complex sentence, but again, because it's too complex for your level, maybe you make a lot of mistakes in this. Okay, and it says frequent grammar errors in punctuation. Again, if you have, let's say, as an essay, and every sentence has a grammar mistake, and you're continuously making an error in a very simple grammar, and again, don't or expect more than 5 points. And another very important thing is punctuation. A lot of students overlook punctuation. They assume it's not as important, let's say, as other parts. Punctuation is important, and we can again talk about this for hours. Okay, and point 8, look at the point 8. It says wide range of structure, and majority of sentences are error-free. So you don't really have grammar mistakes throughout your essay. Maybe you have some, and very occasional, maybe mistakes. Yeah, very occasional means not frequent. But if you have a systematic problem with the grammar, then I'm afraid don't aim more than 5. Okay, let's have a look at some of the tips. Okay, yeah, use variety of sentence types. So you have complex sentences, passive voice, conditionals, clauses, and many of them. So you've probably learned grammar in your general English lessons, and you've probably gone through them, most of them. So make sure that you try to use them in your writing, and use correct form, word form, or order as well, and again punctuation. And avoid, it's very important, you really have to avoid simple common grammar mistakes. Yeah, tenses, articles, and plural singular forms. This really shows your level. I mean, if you're making mistakes in elementary level, like basic level, then obviously examiner cannot really put high mark to your grammar part, because you simply don't deserve. Okay, so let's have a look at the sample here. So I give you maybe 2 minutes, go through the essays and paragraphs, and then tell me which is better. Okay, you can write in the chat. Okay. Okay, good. Well, all right. I think most of you got it. the first one on the left, it's much better. Yeah, look at the structure, look at the connection of the ideas. So in the first sentence itself, you have a combination of 4 or 5 ideas in one very complex structure. Yeah, whether, or, and thus. Yeah, and using the correct punctuation, it really kind of shows your level. You can be very flexible, and you can actually produce a complex structured sentence without any problem for the reader to understand. And if you look on the right side, you have great sentences, interesting ideas, but they are too short, too simplistic, and you cannot really aim for a high mark. And look at the second line. So people argue that a lot nowadays, whether or not. Again, the whether is actually spelling mistake, and it totally changed the meaning here. So again, spelling again is a part of your vocabulary is important. Okay, moving on. I think we're running out of time. Sorry about this. Assessment sheet. Yeah, is it correct spelling? Yeah. Okay. Assessment sheet is from your official paper. So at the back of your paper, you have official use only. So you have TR, task response or task achievement, CC, LR, and GRA. So this is grammar. So these 4 things you're assessed on, and then they will total the mark somewhere here, I guess. But you are also penalized. Remember this as well. Not only you get marked, but you also lose mark for underlengths. So depending on the number of words, you get penalty. The less or the fewer words you have, the more penalty you have here. And off topic, yeah, if you're talking about totally different thing, you've deviated from the topic, you lose mark. Memorize is a common, again, typical student stuff. Sometimes they memorize the whole paragraph. I have seen such students. It's crazy. Or sometimes they memorize a template. That's another stupid thing to do. Sorry for the language, but it is stupid to memorize a template and try to put everything into this template. It doesn't work in IELTS, okay? So don't memorize, you lose mark for this. It's clearly shown here. And illegible. The last one is illegible. It means I cannot read what you're writing. But nowadays, I think most people are taking computer delivered or maybe online IELTS. So this shouldn't be a problem. But if you're taking paper-based IELTS, make sure that your writing is readable so I can read and understand what you're writing. Okay, I think this ends my part of the presentation. Thank you very much for listening and for the patience. And this is my Telegram. If you have a question, you can text me here.
Thank you very much, Eldor, for your precious as well as comprehensible input. I guess they can ace writing because, you know, your explanations were very clear, detailed, simple, but very understandable. I'm also making notes while watching all these explanations. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, I would like to introduce the next speaker, who is Iroda Saydazimova. So she is not only an IELTS instructor at RIKS LC, she's the face of this education center, right? As well, but also she is also a senior teacher at Inha University in Tashkent, and her mission today is talking about speaking. She nailed 9 in speaking. Now I would like to say that good luck to her, and now, Iroda, you can begin.
Okay. Hi, everyone. Thank you very much for being patient and for not leaving me alone. And I'm very thankful to my co-hosts because not just like Sattorov, but me too. I was sitting and jotting down so many ideas. I have, I think, 2 notebooks full, and I'm not flattering. It's true. All right. So thank you very much. I think now we can get started and off we go. Well, firstly, could you please tell me if you can see the screen that I'm sharing?
Yeah.
All right, wonderful. Okay, I was like contemplating a lot about the title to choose, and then finally I came to a conclusion that I'm going to name it All I Know About Speaking, because guys, I'm not a teacher trainer. I will be relying only on my knowledge to share with you whatever I know. Okay, that's why this is all I know about speaking. Okay, so here we go. Let's start it. Thank you very much, Sattorov, for doing this part, for presenting me. So I'm not going to be talking about this part at all. And we can get down to the nitty-gritty. We have a lot of things on our plate today. So what do we have? In our agenda, first of all, as you can see, we're going to start with a warm-up. Here, I will be needing your contribution, the dear our dear attendees, because I want the feedback meaning your reaction, okay? Because I'll be collecting your answer to certain questions. And afterwards, I'll be talking about rubric interpretation. And well, I think you understand why I'll be doing it, just like Eldor Sattorov was doing it. And you should have noticed that this is very important, that you understand what you're expected to do if you wanna, I don't know, achieve a good band score, yeah, in IELTS, because it's an exam. And then I will do my best to share with some of the strategies and activities I apply in my classes. I decided to pick only those that you can use nowadays, considering this pandemic situation. You can do them at home on your own, and if you're a teacher, you can apply them in your classes. I think they're useful. I hope so. Okay, and finally, if necessary, we might have a short session on the questions that you might have. All right, so here we go. Now we are going to be starting with the common difficulties. Here I need your collaboration, dear attendees. Could you please come to your chat box and tell me what, in your opinion, is the hardest thing about speaking? Anything that comes to your mind, okay? Anything that comes to your mind. Don't be shy. I will need your input here. So whatever you think is difficult in writing. Oops, 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 oops. There we go. Can I see the chat? For some reason, I cannot see the chat. Okay, let me do this. And
Iroda, do you need my help?
yes, I need to see the chat, and I want to see the.
Oh, there are a lot of comments here, like finding ideas.
Okay, all right.
Pronunciation.
Oh, now I see them. Thank you. Thank you. I see them. Thank you. Thank you, Saydazimova. So you'll be needing to help me sometimes. Thank you. So yes, I can see that the answers are varying here. So some are about developing your idea, and some are about something to do with personal issues like self-confidence and embarrassment. Yeah, I think that they're all actually true, and indeed they might be a kind of an obstacle that would be blocking your way, yeah, to get a good score. And pronunciation, yes, indeed, but yeah, right, sure. And yeah, examples. Okay, wonderful. I see that you have a lot of ideas here. I really needed it because I would be focusing on that. And speaking slower, do you mean this is a problem, speaking slower, more slowly? I think I didn't really get the answer. Okay, Nadir Dushanov, you have a very interesting answer.
Yeah, keeping eye contact, right?
Okay, all right.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you very much. I'm very grateful for your input. And now here we go. I am going to put up certain questions, and I would be needing your contribution. Please tell me what you think about them. All right, so here we go. These are short answer questions, and I want you to make your contribution briefly, okay? So whatever comes to your mind. So my question one, tell me please, how many parts are there in the speaking test? Quick. Yes, indeed. There are 3 parts. Part 1, that's going to be the introductory part. It serves to warming up, the whole situation, while the second part is it's an individual long term where you're supposed to give a speech, right? You have a minute of time to prepare what you're going to say, and afterwards you'll have to speak from 1 to 2 minutes. And here some people might get it wrong, and they might be saying, but look, the instructions say I can speak from 1 to 2 minutes, but this 1 is included here in order not to let the candidate feel, let's say, awkward, okay? Not to feel pressurized that that person cannot speak extensively. So this is one of the reasons why they put that 1, because they want you to feel good, okay? But you've got to speak for 2 minutes. That's not a question, you just got to do it. Up to 2 minutes. And finally, this is the part 3. And in part 3, you're going to have a 2-way discussion. Your interviewer, your examiner is going to be actively involved in this heated debate, let's say, sometimes. And of course, here is the decider part, because the band score that you are supposed to get will be decided during the third part. My second question, tell me please, is it true that that my examiner can explain me the word or maybe the question if I don't understand it the first time? What do you think? Okay, so Dilnoza and Asalbanu suggested, yes, the examiner can do it. Others are like, no, maybe not. In part 3, Jahongir, yes, you got it right, actually. Well, let me put it this way. In part 1 and part 2, they have the, the whole thing readily set up for them. They only can go through the notes which are prepared for them. They cannot say anything which is not in the booklet. Okay, let me put it this way. And for example, in part 1, you didn't understand the question. All you can do is ask them to repeat it, even though you tell them, you ask them to paraphrase it. All you will get is the repetition of the question. And if you don't understand the second time, what happens is that they simply move to the next question. You're not going to get help here. However, if you, for example, hesitate whether you got the question or not, but then you say, do you mean the by saying the examiner might use some gestures, but they wouldn't voice anything. They wouldn't give you the answer directly. Like they wouldn't confirm it like yes or no. And neither does it happen in the second part, because in the second part, again, everything is recorded in the booklet. All they do is read the instruction for you. And then, by the way, before you start your speech, once they have explained you the instructions that you can take like 1 minute to prepare your notes, and then you'll have to speak for 2 minutes, they're gonna ask this question: do you understand? So when you say, do you understand, you kind of sign the agreement in the contract that you actually understood it. And if you go off topic, this is your problem. Or if you don't understand it, sorry, he can't do anything. All he can do is listen to you and wait for you. And in part 3, however, the examiners, they are more or less flexible, and actually in the very end, if you seem to be somebody who speaks at a very good level, you might get some questions directly from the examiner, not from the booklet actually. So here they have a little bit of a freedom. The questions can be asked from them, and they don't necessarily have to read it only from the booklet. So here you might get some scaffolding. Here you can get some help. They can like paraphrase or explain something. So what do you think about the third question? What is the main reason a candidate can outperform or underperform than he or she usually would? What do you think? I mean, like, you think that you deserve a band score 6, or maybe that's what your teacher usually predicts, but you go and you, for example, hit an 8. Or on the contrary, you go and get a 6. I don't know. What do you think are the variables? What do you think are the factors here? Panic, probably, very true, possible. I have some really nice answers: hesitation, depression. And yes, very true. It also depends on the types of the topics that you have, because you might be asked the question that you've never thought about before. Yes, indeed. And if it's especially your first time performance, maybe you're under stress. Yes, guys, unfortunately, our overall band score doesn't always depend on our language skills, on our true language competence, but rather on other variables as well. There are many factors that can impact us. Your health that day, maybe you have a headache, or maybe you're stressed, maybe you're anxious, or maybe you probably didn't like the examiner that much, who knows, right? Or maybe that day someone spoiled your mood. Many variables, and anything can play a part here. All right, so what do you think about the next question? If the examiner is not looking at me during part 2, for example, this means that he or she is bored. Is that true? I can see that you unanimously decided to say no, and this is true. For example, during part one, when you're speaking and when you're talking about personal things, the examiner would get this big picture and he might be saying, or she might be saying, okay, so this person seems to be someone at around 5 to 6 or 7. I don't know. Let's see. Maybe the questions are easy, so he is or she is kind of dealing with the questions pretty well. But then when it comes to part two, this is the stage while you're giving your speech is when they will be actively looking at their booklets, because here they want to determine the scales, like in between which two band scores you're hovering. Are you, for example, a band score 6 or a 7? So they're checking the rubric really, and they're trying to see where you are, okay? And that's part two. And if they're looking at their notes, or if they're doing something, please don't feel discouraged. Rather, just keep talking, and keep talking, because they're actively doing their part of job. While in part three, here they would be deciding what that very band score is that you deserve. And next question, what do you think about it? Is it true that grammar is the most important competence in speaking? The most meaning foremost. Yeah, I see a variety of answers in the chat box here. And actually, this is, yes, here I have a very good answer. Indeed, everything depends on the full criteria. You're not going to be assessed solely on grammar, but rather on 4 different criteria, and they all weigh equal proportions, 25% each. Very correct. And the next one, is it true that the assessment starts as soon as the candidate is out of the room? Ooh, I think I've given the answer to this question a little early. Well, let me check how much focused you are on what I'm saying. Yes, indeed, you're right. This is not true because they actually start assessing you as soon as you start part one, right? Part one, as I said, building this big picture. Part two, seeing the scales, like where you are, maybe in between 2 band scores. And then finally in part three, that's the decider part. All right, thank you very much indeed for your contribution, guys. And now let's move on. Yes, I'm not going to be talking too much about this. You guys know that there are 4 marking criteria, and each of them, as you told me, would be weighing same proportion, 25% each: fluency and coherence, lexical resource, grammatical range and accuracy, and finally pronunciation. Okay, now I told you in the very beginning when I was telling you more about the items in the agenda that we would be looking at the rubric, yeah? Just like Eldor Sattorov has done, I'm going to be doing that too. But in my presentation, I want you to help me, okay? I'll be needing your help. Please look at this chunk, screenshot on the left side of your screen, and particularly pay attention to the bullet points which I underline it with blue color, okay? So they are for band scores 7 and 6 respectively. So what do you think would be the difference between somebody who speaks at the band score 6 and someone who could get a 7? What do you think is that tells them apart? What is the difference? I'll be waiting for your answers here. Okay. All right. So please only focus on the underlined chunks, okay? Yes, I see that Ahmad is getting it correct. Indeed. So somebody who's at band score 6 would try to speak really well without any pauses, but that would be obvious that they're really trying hard to do it. But someone who speaks at band score 7 would do it more or less eloquently and more or less freely, right? And they might still demonstrate some language-related hesitation, though. However, that's not very frequent, and the mistakes might be self-corrected, which is good. And now I want you to look at band scores 8 and 9. And here I used a pink color to underline certain bullet points that I want you to look at. So what do you think is the difference between someone who speaks at band score 8 or 9? I'll be waiting for your responses. Yeah, that's about the fluency. Okay. And if you look more scrupulously, there is actually hesitation in both cases. However, hesitation of two different types. Somebody who speaks at band score 8, according to the public rubric, well, this person would perform the hesitation with it, which is related to language. So they might have this, you know, infrequent short like pauses, but not, well, I mean, it would be obvious that they're trying to find a word to say. You know what I mean? They're trying to think about some word or a phrase in English, and that's what they're trying to remember, and that's obvious. However, somebody who speaks at band score 9 would still have hesitation, but it would mostly be related to the idea. And this is something that we all actually come across with, even in our native language, in Uzbek language, right? So, yeah. And now I want you to look at band score 6 and 7. And here I used green color to underline the remainder of the bullet points. So what do you think would be the difference between someone who speaks at band score 6 or 7? Salbono, I'll respond to your question in the end of my part, okay? Yes, it's free. You can download them in, I mean, I don't know, everywhere. I think they're available everywhere, these public markers. No, assessment rubric. Okay, usage of conjunctions, Jahangir suggests. Okay, all right. Here, someone who can speak at band score 6 would do that appropriately, while someone who speaks at band score 7, for example, would do it with some flexibility. So they're more at ease doing it. And now looking at the other two band scores, 8 and 9, what do you think about them? Last bullet points. Okay, I would like to see. Okay, yes, I see some really nice answers. For example, Ahmad says that it's really easy to understand, almost flawless, and it's very comfortable when it comes to speaking in all common talks. Hesitation only happens to search information, not more. Yes, indeed, indeed. So here, someone who speaks at band score 8 would develop the topics coherently, and everything would be organized in a nice way. However, when it comes to 9, this is not only about talking with fully appropriate cohesive features, but also, how would I say, they would do it naturally. Yeah, let me put it this way, that would happen more naturally. And now putting all of these together, let me summarize it. So guys, if you want to get a better band score at speaking, for God's sake, just keep talking. Don't stop. Talk, talk, talk. Even though you don't know the exact word, it's okay to circumlocute. It's okay. As long as you can get your idea across, you're fine. Okay? So keep talking. Don't stop. And that would be the first tip. And for example, the next one would be increase the rate of your speech. I'm not talking about talking too fast or talking too, I don't know. I mean, I'm not talking about speaking too fast. I'm talking about a normal pace of speech that you, for example, have in your Uzbek language or Russian language as well, okay? However, if you speak too slowly because you're trying to think of the words, then probably you need to work on your speed. And here I'm gonna, on the next slide, share with one activity that you can use in order to improve it, to achieve it. And yes, use discourse markers. Well, here I was watching Diyorbek's part on listening, and he was also giving this suggestion. Listen for signpost language. Indeed, because when you're doing the listening test, the signpost which is used by the speakers is going to help you because you will know what's coming next. You're prepared. If they say so, that means that they're going to summarize something, for example, or they're going to talk about the, I don't know, conclusion for something. Or if they say, by the way, then this would mean that they're going to change the path of the speech and talk about something else different, right? So here, if they help you to the listener to understand the discourse that you listen, right? It means that it is going to help your examiner as well in the same way. So use plenty of discourse markers to help your examiner anticipate what's coming next in your speech, like what you're going to say next. Okay, and how about the sources? So here, if you want to have more ideas about discourse markers, you can visit the link that I'm providing you with. You can take a look at them and you can understand them. So I'm not talking about such linkers as furthermore or moreover, because we don't use them in speaking actually, right? We would use something more simple, something more mundane, yeah, I would say, like besides, also, this kind of words. And then elaborate on your answers. Please develop your answers. Here, you've got to develop meaning, look at the topic from different perspectives if necessary, and don't give only one sentence long answer. Maybe you want to like challenge yourself asking WH questions like why, when, how, who, right? So if you ask these questions from yourself, you're going to talk further and further and further. Or you can focus on PPF. I think everybody knows this method. Like you can talk about one particular question, you can talk about the past and then present and then predict the future, for example. So you're extending your answer in that way. Or you can talk about the pros or cons of an issue at hand. All right, so now I'm going to show you guys and one activity that you probably will find interesting and use in your like speaking preparation. And as I told you, this one is dedicated to increasing the speed of your speech. Okay, so what is it? I name it Tell Your Own Story. You name it however you like. Okay, what do? You will be working with a chunk from a film or a cartoon, any video file actually, but you will have to voice it. Now I'm going to tell you what it is like step by step. First off, what you're going to do is go to YouTube, for example, choose any random movie or a cartoon, preferably the one that you haven't watched before, because it would be interesting and it would be surprising and you would not have prior preparation and it would really be impromptu. And what do? You are going to mute your video, whatever it is. So once you've muted the sound, you will play the movie or a cartoon. And as it goes, you are going to be the narrator of the plot. Okay, so you can talk about different things, really. You can talk about the place, you can talk about the setting. I mean, you can talk about the people and what is going on. Depends on what you want to improve in your speaking. But why is it good for your, let's say, speed? Yes, in your speaking. This is because you don't rule it. You depend on the speed of the cartoon or a movie that you're watching, because you have to work simultaneously and it won't wait for you. You should go on and on and on, like non-stop describe what you can see, and you should imagine at the same time. So yeah, I would suggest you that you try this activity. At first, it's going to be really challenging. However, over time, you're going to like it, I'm sure. And another fun thing you can do is record your voice, record your version of the story, and afterwards watch it. And as you watch it, you can do self-analysis. You can take a look at frequent mistakes that you're making. You can take a look at some kind of pronunciation problems, maybe, yeah, or maybe something related to vocabulary. So please go on, give it a go. You're gonna like it for sure. But I also know that not everybody has all the facilities, right, to do it. But let's try it here. Let's try it here. I'm going to play a chunk from a film. I'm not going to tell you which film it is. And I want you to give it a try. Nobody hears you. You're all muted, right? I'm going to play only maybe 15 seconds, okay? And there is no one around you, I hope. Just talk about it, narrate it, talk about the people, talk about the setting, talk about the rest. In order to help you, I have the prompts on the right side. So who do you see? What are they doing? Where do you think they are? And why do you think they're doing the thing they're doing? So let's give it a go. I want you to get ready. I will play only 15 seconds. During these 15 seconds, you can rely on the prompts on the right side and keep talking and talking and talking, okay? After that, I'll be needing your feedback. So off we go. 1, 2, go. It's mute. All right. So you guys, what do you think about it? What did you have to talk about? And how do you like it? Was it difficult? What was difficult? And so on. I need your feedback here. Okay. I really don't know how to get the chat box out here. Let me give it a try again. That's interesting. Yes, here they are. Oh. Okay, all right. It doesn't matter really. I can read the chat box here.
Iroda, do you need my help?
Yes, because I will never get the chat box appear on my screen for some reason again.
They are writing chocolate farm, quite interesting. Julie encourages to speak more. I didn't know what film it was, but it was so fun.
Okay.
Find out where they are. They're going. I guess it's really challenging and one of the famous cartoon hero.
Okay. Thank you very much, Sodetapa. Thank you very much. I hope you liked this fun activity. And now let's go back to the tips that I've given you already. So I said that you need to keep talking. And did you have to keep talking here? Did you have to force yourself to keep talking? I think yes, because the action was going on and you had no power over it. You had to continue in the same pace. Do you think it's going to increase the rate of your speech? Again, for the same reason, we're not going to reinvent the wheel here. Yes, indeed, because you have to follow the speed, you've got to, you will be over time, I think, increasing the rate of your speech. Consciously, subconsciously. And yes, it would be great if you could use the Discord's markers, like when you're giving a reason or when you're talking about the, I don't know, those moments when you're switching from one to another phase of your description, for example. And did you have to elaborate on your answers? I think here you were supposed to elaborate on your answers because the prompts were prepared in advance. Now, here I want to present some other alternatives. I know that not everybody has laptops maybe, and not everybody maybe has access to internet, let alone the applications which you can use in order to record the whole thing. Use pictures. Use pictures. You can go to the internet, you can make your own collection, and then you can actually like slide them over and over and over, like move on and on and on. And just each time you have a new picture, keep talking about it. And then when you switch to the next picture, you do you, like however you want, but make that logical connection and continue your speech, okay? Maybe the first picture was a mobile phone, so you talk about its appearance, and then you talk about its functionality. And then here is the next picture popping up, and this is a beautiful lady. And then you need to find that connection between ladies and, I don't know, a mobile phone, and then you have a football player. It doesn't matter, really, just talk, okay? And it's going to help you with your pace, I think, with your speed in speech. Or alternatively, what you can do is cut out these pictures from different journals, magazines. That's the easiest one, right? And keep them in piles, and then you can just look at them one by one and practice this activity. Really, this is very adaptable. You can use it however you like. All you need to do is want it. All right, let me move now. A lexical resource. I'm not gonna be torturing you guys because the time is restricted. I'll be going faster now. So I underlined for you those key moments in the assessment rubric, and I want you to look into them more in more details and try to see the difference. But I'll be revealing the answers, okay? So all in all, what it takes to performing good lexical resource in your speech is showing a range of vocabulary. And range of vocabulary meaning, depending on the topic, if you're talking about, say, wildlife conservation, yeah, you got to use the words which are related to this area. And it's not only about using them, but using them appropriately. And this topic-oriented vocabulary should be used to the point, in place, and make sense. You're not going to use the words just for the sake of using them. Yeah, they should serve you. And the other thing is paraphrasing. Yes, you can see here it as well. When you're asked the question, you've got to somehow perform it back. You should give it back, right? So you can paraphrase the question, use other words, and just develop your idea. And next is displaying a blend of advanced level and let's say less common idiomatic language patterns. And here, idiomatic language means that this is informal language. And please don't mistake it for idioms only. Yeah, idiomatic language is the figurative language. And in most cases, these are the words which could not be understood unless you know what they actually stand for. I mean, what they actually mean. Because you can't understand them literally. You got to know the real use, the real meaning. Yeah, that's why they're called metaphorical or figurative. And you've got to use them. And of course, at the same time, you've got to show that you have tier 2 vocabulary, advanced vocabulary. What is it? So this is the lexis that an advanced user of English would know. Someone educated, someone who reads a lot, who went to school and can apply, right? So it's not only informal speed that you've got to produce, you've got to show a good blend of both two types of discourses and lexis. And here I want to share with some of the tips and strategies. What are they? Study the vocabulary in context. And I think I'm kind of repeating what my fellow colleagues already mentioned. Like Eldor was talking about, Eldor Sattorov, I'm sorry, was talking about learning the words, right? In context. Indeed, so do I. And so do I in my teaching as well. I ask my learners to learn the words in verbs, like create these deviating lines going here and there, different areas, different contexts, and their usage and their forms, okay? And if you do that, you're going to know more about the word and you will know about its usage. And of course, you got to know also what words they collocate with, what are the collocating partners for them. And of course, one good piece of advice here would be checking the level of the word that you're using. I mean, for example, we know that according to Common European Framework, CEFR, yes, the words have their levels. And for example, if you go to Cambridge Dictionary, important is an A1 level word. What is A1? A1 is someone, well, A1 meaning somebody who speaks at around 1-2, band score 1-2 maybe, okay? That's very basic. But if you go to another word, which is its immediate synonym, significant, that one is B2. B2 meaning you're between 5.5 and 6.5, according to IELTS, of course, right? And you can always go to Cambridge Dictionary, for example, and check and see how you can use them interchangeably. But there's one danger about them. By the way, here are the Yes. So there's one danger about it. Some people become obsessed. You know, they want to flood their speech with this super complex and C1, C2 level word. Oh my God, your speech is going to be so hard to comprehend. One can't digest it. It should be a good balance between A1, A2, B1, B2, C1, and C2, right? So they should be a good proportion from all. And there's one thing that you can do here. So for example, oh my God, somebody, can you please mute your mics? Thank you so much. That would be so awesome if you did it. Gulhumar, can you please? Oh, thank you so much. Thank you so much. Wonderful. So for example, if you go to the source, here you can see that words have their direct synonyms, and but you need to remember that not all words are interchangeable, right? Not every synonym can replace the other one in certain contexts. And in order to make sure that you use them correctly, you can go and try these activities by Cambridge English. Here they would, for example, for this particular activity, show you a context, like there is a sentence, and then you've got to choose what would be the right word. Yes, would it be a particular or certain? Seemingly, these two words are interchangeable. Seemingly, they are synonyms, but no, only one of them is correct. And I would suggest you to check it out and see how you can deal with it and know the difference, spot the difference. And as I told you, please don't become obsessed with them, okay? And another thing, so here we go. Yes, a good thing about it for the teachers, for example, about knowing the level, determining the level of the word is that you can give feedback to your student, or if you're a learner, you can do self-assessment. So for example, one of the websites I can suggest you is Road to Grammar. This is kind of a text analyzer. You're going to input the piece of text, and then it's going to analyze it for you. Like how many words belong to A1, A2, B1, B2, C1, C2 levels respectively. So by that you can determine what level of the words you mainly use in your speech, or do you have any of C2 words, or do you have any C1 words, right? And what's good about it, if you're a teacher, for example, you can use it in order to determine the approximate level, yes, the text that you have at hand. It could be the speech of your student. You can generate your own vocab set. Yes, you might say, now study these synonyms for these words, particular words. Of course, you can use it in order to analyze the level of difficulty of two different speeches by the same speaker, for example. And of course, you can get the meaning for the suggested vocabulary list. Another alternative, by the way, for this website is called, what's it called? Text Inspector. I need to give the credits. Text Inspector, I found out about it through my professor at Webster University, Erkin Mukimova. It was him who actually showed this website to me because I needed to prepare my assignment on testing and assessment, and that's when I came across it, and I find it really amazing. But don't become obsessed, okay? Because your speech should be natural. You cannot have a flood of C2 level words that's going to be really hard to digest, right? Okay, let your examiner sometimes to take a breath in and out, okay, from your complex words. So be careful about that. And idiomatic language, I need to clarify once again, this is not only idioms, these are any informal language patterns. Those can be word partnerships, meaning collocations, phrasal verbs, and of course, idioms themselves, right? And when it comes to idioms, this is something that Diyorbek was also mentioning. Try to avoid cliche ones, the ones that are overly used, maybe. I don't remember who actually said that, but I think I'm not sure, maybe Eldor. Well, okay, I'm sorry, I like talking to myself. So yeah, basically try to avoid cliche, try to use archaic words, try to use the ones which are in nowadays, which are popular nowadays, which are in common nowadays, okay? Fresh ones. And finally, on a final note, I want to finish my presentation with this piece of advice. According to my colleague, where I happen to work. I'm not supposed to be telling that, but he's a present examiner, and that's what he says. Iroda, somebody who speaks at band score 8 at least should be able to show some depth. What is depth? I did a little bit of research for you, and for example, from dictionary.com, I found this. In-depth speech means it's an extensive speech. It's thorough, okay? It's profound, and there is a good balance, okay, about what you're saying. And now I will try to put it in a different way. Communicate your ideas if you want to show depth in your speech by means of description. Make your speech descriptive. When the examiner closes his eyes, he should be able to visualize it, okay? Make it interesting, make it sweet. Also, you should be able to use evaluation, like express your feeling about something. If you think that something is a negative, I don't know, situation, so you should explain why it's negative, why it's bad, or if it's good, then why. So this is basically your opinion. And of course, you got to show some analysis. If you have a question at hand, you're not only going to talk about it from one side, not only advantages. Look, everything has two sides, right? Advantages and disadvantages, causes and effects, problems and solutions. So show it all in, especially in part 3, when you're supposed to speak very generally about the topics. How else can you show depth? By critical thinking. Don't be biased. Don't be biased. You know, you can't blindly believe that something is correct and it's true. Absolutely. No, there will certainly be someone else out there who will contradict you. So be ready for that counter argument. Present it as well. So you might say, in general, I feel like this because of these reasons. However, some might say, and their position, but then negate it, refute it, okay? So show that you have critical thinking, show depth in your speech. And I would suggest you please take on a habit to learn about a variety of topics. Look, guys, I'm never tired of repeating it to my students. You're not going to the speaking exam to show the grammaticality or to show how rich your vocabulary is or how well you can do in certain language related skills. No, guys, you're going to talk about topics. You need to constantly read. You need to constantly talk, watch news, obtain information from the outside. For example, your topics may vary from, I don't know, types of leaders up to wildlife conservation. If you don't have any idea about these topics, however good your English is, you're not going to be able to say anything because the idea is not there. So you know what? One of the biggest secrets of achieving a good band score in IELTS is actually having a very, very wide outlook. You got to know a little bit of about everything, a little bit of biology, a little bit of history. You need to know a little bit about, I don't know, business if necessary. I mean, yeah, you need to know a little bit from every sphere. Only if you have some idea, background idea, are you going to respond readily. Okay, so you will have little hesitation. So make the language serve you. You don't become the servant for the language, okay? Make it serve you. When is it going to serve you? When you have your ideas readily here, available, and when you're fluent, yes? And when you've improved your skills. So only language is not going to be the ticket to a good band score. It's the blend of the two. And this, okay, together they work in tandem. This is like two-pronged approach, like two things work together. And another thing, you cannot separate speaking from other skills. They're inseparable. How are you going to improve your speaking if you don't read? How are you going to expand your speaking if you can't listen well, right? You know what I mean? All these skills are actually interrelated with each other. You cannot improve one skill in isolation. You need to improve all the skills simultaneously in your speech. And one thing you can do here, this is going to be the last moment. I promise. Try this activity. I like it. I quite often apply this very activity in my classes too. you can give your students an article. I often do that. For example, the last time we talked about a topic, I think the topic was wildlife conservation. Yeah, that's why it's at the tip of my tongue. And I prepared a good article for them. I highlighted the words for them. And what they can do here is read the article and then take 1 minute. So you can use your mobile phone, time yourself. In 1 minute, try to retell whatever you remember from that article. Okay, 1 minute is over. You go back to your article, try to now look at other aspects, not only the detail, like description, but also some examples this time. So you go to your timer again, time yourself for 2 minutes and talk about more details. Then you increase it to 3 minutes and 4 minutes, each time trying to cover more and more details about the article. Then go backwards. Why do you need to go backwards? By that, you will be speaking a lot. You will be more informative. However, you will be doing it not slowly, but faster. Okay, so you will be an effective speaker. So I would say, please go ahead, apply this activity. You don't need a teacher to use it. You can do it on your own. If you're a teacher, please, I'll be like really honored if you use it in your classes too, and if you find it useful. Yes, this is it. As I promised, this was the last slide of my presentation. Thank you very much. If you happen to have any questions, be my guest. So I am finishing it here. Yes, whew, finally.
Thank you so much, dear Iroda. I really like it as a part of activities, because as a teacher, I learned a lot. Thank you very much. And I really like the part where you explain it on the go with question answers. I'm sure that everybody can take the benefit of this, and they can not only learn, but also boost their speaking. If they are a teacher, they can learn how to explain speaking and how to practice speaking with their students. But if they are a student, of course, they can boost their speaking mark with your precious tips. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
Dedicating your time to today's webinar, and I would like to thank all other presenters. Your contribution to our webinar was just great. Thank you so much. And I would like to say thank you to all our attendees as well. Stay tuned, please. And we are going to organize, facilitate some other webinars on IELTS, and we very hope that all other precious IELTS instructors will be our hosts. And again, Iroda,
I'm very sorry. I'm very sorry. I'm feeling really guilty cutting you, but I really need to answer this Asal's question. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to ignore you, Asal. Honestly, for the speaking portion, you're asking about books. Honestly, I've never come across any really effective book. I use, a range of books, and honestly, I don't really have any good book that I can recommend. I'm afraid of recommending. What you can do, you can improve your speaking only by speaking. And of course, getting information from other sources by activating your other skills. This is all you can do. Like read more and talk more, speak more.
I do agree with you, Iroda. Yeah, continuous speaking is the key of success, of course. And of course, if they follow your tips, they will ace it. Thank you very much once more again to everybody. Please stay tuned. We'll continue our series on IELTS instructions and how to boost your score. Okay, Nadirapa?
Yeah, thank you so much for everyone. Thank you for the presenters. Thank you, Saudat, for moderating today's webinar. Thank you, Iroda, Eldor, Diyorbek, and Barno. Yeah, I think it was a really productive online forum, and we're really happy to share experiences, right, and share ideas. Yeah, keep tuned to our next webinars and events. Yeah, thank you all. Bye. You will be able to, you will be able to watch the recording of this webinar on our YouTube channel, because I'm sure we all need to rewatch it to, to revise some of the tips that were mentioned today. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Bye.
Yeah, thank you. Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Thanks.
See you next time.
Thank you, all mentors.
See you
Yeah.
next time.
Yeah,
We
thank
expect another serial video, another seminar.
Okay.
Yeah.
We
Thank
hope
you.
you
I'm
will
ending the
attend.
meeting. Thank you. See you. Bye.